Let's change that. All right. I've got sound on my phone, like the one I'm watching it on. Huh, that's weird. I don't know why you're not getting sound. Yeah, because it's one I'm watching. Playing through here. It's a little low. Let me change over to the other mic, see if that's louder. We'll try that. Um,
Hello. That one doesn't look like it's any better. So let's change over to the other option.
that's probably going to be very loud. When Egg gets here, that might pose a problem. But let's see. Let's look at the chat. Oh, wait, there you are. Okay, so it was a bit of delay. So I am going to go back to the other because that's on speakerphone, which means as soon as Ed pops in here and starts talking, you're going to get that echo. So let's go back. Sorry, apologies for the thing. Let me close the audio out so I can see when Ed joins us. But yeah, it's been an interesting week. I wasn't going to stream just because I didn't know how good the quality would be. I don't have the streaming set up here, but I didn't feel like that was necessarily fair to you all. So I figured we'd give it a try, and if it did work, at least we made an honest effort, and we'll see where it goes. We'll give it a minute. Ed sent me a text. He's working on getting in here. His computer's being slow. Yeah, so we'll see him soon. And hopefully the audio catches up for everybody. That's it. We'll give it a minute to see if the audio catches up. I think Ed is in the back. Let's see. Let's bring him up here. Add to stream. Hey there, buddy.
Hi, guys. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, James? Oh.
All right. This is going to be, for some reason, it wants to send your audio through my phone, even though I've got these hooked up. So give me a second. I think it's where I just went and messed with it.
I muted you trying to get to hear you when I was backstage.
Hear you laughing through the phone. That's all I.
Sorry, James.
No, that's fine. You go ahead and say hi and tell everybody what's up. I'll get this fixed.
Hey guys, we're just having technical difficulties all the way around. I'm thinking about maybe tomorrow buying a new computer because mine took like 45 minutes to boot finally. And
oh, wow.
I know it's terrible, but once it's going, it's going. But like I went to the YouTube site to give you a thumbs up and type in chat, and
right.
I'm just getting a black screen over there. So I was like, oh my gosh, what happened? So I came back over here and I could see you, and I was here. But,
gotcha. Well, I think everything's working now. This is why we normally get together a bit ahead of the stream, so we could fix all this stuff before we go live. But now you get to see the behind the scenes of what we do before we get started. But Ed, as always, I'm glad to have you here. I appreciate you hanging out with us tonight. I wanted to talk a little bit about tips for moving aquariums, moving fish, things like that, because that is relevant. Behind me, I've got 16 10-gallon tanks on this rack, and then I've also moved a bunch of stuff, but I've got two 20-gallons sitting next to me on a desk, and then a couple of nanos over there. And I've got a bunch, well, you can see them, a bunch of 29s that are there. They delayed the shipping on my metal rack. I bought one of the metal racks like what Ed has in his fish room, and it was supposed to be here today, and then it's saying it's going to be here tomorrow. So the plan is to be back out here again tomorrow, get it set up, get these tanks filled, sponges thrown in them, and then I can bring the piranha out and kind of separate them in tanks. The only things I have left at the house right now are the piranhas, the Exodon tank, the Pleco tower that's got the zebras and the snowballs in it, and then the tank that has the bicers and ejectants. All the little fish are moved at this point, all the guppies and minnows and live bears and the bristle noses and stuff like that.
Looks great.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I did a lot of lighting work. I've got a bunch of the shop lights just strewn around there just so you could be able to see for the stream. But, you know, it is what it is. Huge thanks to everyone for being here. We got 51 people, and I greatly appreciate that. I know without the KG Tropical stream ahead of us, I knew that the crowd was going to be a little bit smaller, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. That being said, now that we've worked through the audio and video difficulties, and we've got Ed here, let's talk about moving tanks, and then I'll jump in and grab some questions and things off the phone here. So the first thing I want to talk about, and these aren't necessarily as we progress in any particular order, but the first couple are, I think, of the highest importance. The first one I want to talk about is to say everything will be okay. Calm down, it'll be fine. Your fish, if packed correctly, will be fine. And I tell you this because this is the biggest thing I have trouble with. And what I mean by that is I fight myself constantly. On the one side, I have my logical self that knows these fish are going to be fine. It knows how long fish stay in shipping and how long they can go in bags, and crunches the numbers and knows everything's going to be fine. The other side of me is that emotional side that goes, oh, my fish, I love these guys, and now they're in buckets or bags, and I have to hurry and get them out of water, you know, out of the bags and in the tanks and all of that. And so that's why I put that first, is because I'm a hypocrite in the sense if I'm saying that, but I don't always, not always able to practice it. I find it, sometimes I get really stressed out worrying about the fish, even though the logical me knows they're going to be okay. You know, I've got them packed properly, whether it's bagged or in buckets or whatnot. I know that they're being transported in a method that's suitable to keep them alive. And then talking on that a little bit, for anybody that's not familiar, you really want to have more oxygen than water when you're transporting fish or packing fish or anything like that. I know a lot of people, especially when they're first getting started or it's their first time bagging fish, and the exception to this would be breeder bags, in which case, you know, that's all water. But just with your typical packing fish in plastic bags, Ziploc bags, buckets, you want to, I usually go with about 1/3 water and 2/3 oxygen is what I would do, because the fish don't really need a ton of water to swim around in, but they do need that oxygen to be able to get it dissolved into the water as you're transporting them. As you know, they're in the bag, in shipping, or in your car, or in the bucket, and that water is going to be getting aerated. There's going to be surface agitation. I don't care how good of a driver you are, it's going to splash around in the box, or in the bag, or in the bucket, and it's going to aerate that water out as long as you've got sufficient oxygen in the container to get put back into the water system. Yeah, but that's my first thing, is don't panic, just keep calm, and your fish will be fine as long as you do it correctly. From that, I would say the biggest point, or do you have anything you want to add to that, buddy?
No, I'm enjoying listening too.
Well, there we go. I'll keep rambling on then. Planning is the next thing. I don't care what your methodology is, whether it's you sit down with a pencil or pen and paper and you write a list, or whether you draw diagrams, or whether you use an app on your phone or a program on your computer. Whatever your ideal methodology is for planning things out, take the time ahead of time to go through, look at each tank, and plan the move out. If you're somebody that visualizes mentally, then sit there and look and go, okay, so just specific process. You know, when I first started moving some fish in tanks yesterday, I sat down the day before, the night before, and I looked. And I actually took a Sharpie and I wrote on the tanks what I was going to do. So I wrote on there, what tank they were going into, because I did have the luxury of time and extra tanks. So I set some tanks up ahead of time. So I wrote on there, okay, these are going to go into a 20-gallon tank, and they're going to be transported in a 5-gallon bucket. And then, if it had like plants or things in it, keep that in mind. Okay, if I've got this big annuity, if I've got some wet paper towels that I can get damp and wrap around it, that way it stays moist and doesn't dry out. Or I've got a bag I can throw my moss in, or something I can take and pull my stem plants, wrap them in a wet paper towel, throw them in a bag, and keep them from drying out. And I really encourage you to just kind of take the time ahead of time to go through and make that planning and whatever your methodology is for it. That way you can also look at what you'll need. So I was able at the end time to go, okay, well, I need to make sure that I have these tanks available for the fish to go into, but I also need this many 5-gallon buckets. I need this many fish bags, large fish bags. I need this many small fish bags. And so I was able to, before I even touch the fish, have everything available, go out and buy the extra buckets that I needed, make sure I had some bags. Which I do want to say, I'm not sponsored, of course, but shout out to Hefty. The Hefty sit and fill or standing fill bags that they have, they work phenomenally. They've got the corners are already tucked in, and so the bottom is flattened out and it doesn't have the little tips of the edges that fish typically get caught in if you're using a not fish bag. I use those. I didn't even use fish bags, and those things worked wonderfully well. They used
That's awesome.
The quart gallon size.
Now,
so that was great. Go ahead, buddy.
Can you heat seal those if you were going to ship them? Or do you, for heat sealing, do you have to have ones that are, like a sleeve?
No, you can heat seal those. And I almost thought about doing that, but they sealed so well that I didn't bother. I had one bag out of 20-something that I didn't get the zipper, because they've got the zipper. They're not just the push close. Mm-hmm. So there was one bag that I apparently didn't get sealed all the way that leaked some in the bottom of the tote. I had everything in, but even those fish were fine. So yeah, that worked really well. And what I did with those is I put my water in, and I put my fish in, and then I rolled the top down, and so it made like a really tight pouch, and I just put a piece of tape over it to keep it in that rolled pouch. So you have this almost like a fish bag, but sideways. Nice. But it was still nice and tight. The fish couldn't get trapped in any corners or cubbies or anything, and it worked really, really well doing that. But go ahead.
I've got another quick question. I hope I don't mean to get ahead of you if you're going to go this far, but with your sponge filters, did you make sure that they were going with the same fish so you didn't cross contaminate anything, or was that? I mean, I know you've had your fish for a long time, so.
No, that's a good point, and the answer to that is yes and no. No, I did not keep them with the specific tanks they were in, but I did when I transported them, because I knew everything had been healthy. I knew I hadn't had any issues. Anything that I thought remotely had a problem got segregated and isolated. But what I did do is I separated all of my sponges from tanks that had hair algae from all of the sponges of tanks that didn't have hair algae. So I didn't cross-contaminate with any type of, there's a little bit of blackbeard on one of the sponges. That one went separate than the pure filters. And all the ones that had hair algae, they got separated and went into their own container to be transported without having. That way I knew when I got here, it's like, okay, these are the ones that had hair algae on them. I don't mind if there's hair algae in these tanks. These are the tanks that I'm putting mosses and plants and things in that I 100% don't want hair algae in, and I'm going to use the good sponge filters in there. But that is a very good point. If you've got things that you're worried about cross-contaminating, just kind of keep them isolated and just label things out. There's nothing wrong with labeling. Some of the stuff where it was fish, I couldn't tell exactly what it was, whether it be juvenile endlers or a bag of fry from guppies or endlers. I'd label it out either with these little labels I already had. I just threw them on the bags, or writing on the bag with a permanent marker. That way I knew when I got there exactly what was in those bags. Because anybody that's dealt with young guppies or endlers, or females a lot of times, you hold them up and you're like, I don't know what's what. And it can be almost impossible to discern until they grow out a month, 2 months later.
For sure. What? Okay, let's go one step farther, and I hope I'm not
That's
going
good.
down a rabbit hole. But if you would cross contaminate and get hair algae somewhere you don't want, what's the best way to get rid of the hair algae? And I'm asking this as a personal question because
Kill it with
this
fire.
tank right here had a little bit of the Nubius petite, had some hair algae on it, and I've got one. Well, actually, it's not too bad. I've been keeping the lights off a lot lately, but
Okay.
that's because it's a Nubius and I know it can handle the low light. But it had a giant string that was going way up in the air, and it looks like it's kind of starting to fall over, so that's good. But what would you recommend to get rid of the hair algae?
So depending upon what's in the tank and the plants, there are a couple different methods. One of them can be a blackout, which, like you talked about, Anubias handles, blackouts really well. My go-to that I use a lot is hydrogen peroxide. And I will actually, there are a lot of different methods, there are a lot of different recommended doses. I don't typically dose whole tank, but I will spot treat with it. So I'll take a pipette and I'll put it in the bottle and I'll kind of spot treat in tank if I need to. But I like to try and physically remove as much as I possibly can. And then like on my sponge filters, when I pulled them, I removed as much as I physically could. And then I actually took, and yes, this is going to kill some of the beneficial bacteria, externally exposed on the sponge. But I took a spray. I have spray bottle of hydrogen peroxide, then I have the standard bottle. And then I just sprayed it. And that hydrogen peroxide just wears that stuff out really, really well. You can also do a bleach dip. If you do it, just make sure that you do a diluted bleach dip, and their recommendations for varying degrees all over YouTube on what to go with in terms of how much bleach and how long. I know Tech got a video on cleaning some plants up, and a lot of people do. Probably 5-6 people in here have videos on doing bleach dips or even hydrogen peroxide dosing on your hair algae. But most of the time, the tanks that I have it in, I actually blunt it in because you get a lot of benefits out of having hair algae. There are there's a lot of microscopic fauna that gets in that hair algae, and it's just great for baby fish and for breeding. A lot of people that I talk to, and you talk to as well, will say that the best breeding tanks for them are the nastiest ones, the ones that have all the algae and the mold and all the places for all those microorganisms to really get in there and thrive. And then those baby fish come along and they thrive off of those. So it works really well and creates a nice cycle there.
Awesome. I have one tank that I've got just a ton of hair algae and absolutely love it. But then I've got another tank that I've grown it in there. But the inlers, it's not the male inlers, but the female inlers snag their gill plates in the hair algae, and I'll find females occasionally, caught in it, and they actually die in it. So I've had to clean that completely out. So you just never know. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, it definitely can overwhelm a tank if it gets to a certain extent. And I have seen that issue maybe once or twice before, where you get a fish that kind of gets trapped up in it. All right, I'm going to jump to the chat real quick and grab some questions before it jumps on me and I can't get back to them. Ryan Melling asked earlier, I want to set up a 10-gallon rack. What is the best metal rack system and where to purchase? Look at several options that one experienced opinion. So I like, well, Ed, you want to go first? I've talked a lot. You want to go first on that?
Well, I like the, excuse me. I really like the Husky. I think it's a 77-inch. It might be 72-inch long. And that's what I've bought mostly. I've bought one other type that kind of annoyed me because it has a brace on the inside. And I wish I knew what it was called. It was the Lowe's brand, but it had like these sidebars that went on the inside, which actually cut about 4 inches out of your middle space. So you can't get as many tanks as you can on the top, which is really annoying. But the Huskies just seem to be great. They don't take away any of your extra space. They're perfect for putting two 20 longs and one 10 fits perfect in them. And so I absolutely love that. And then my trick is I buy 3 and I get a 4th one for free because I'm only going 3 high, but they give you 4 racks. So you're attaching the poles on both sides, so you end up with an extra set of poles in between each 2. And then you can, so I don't know if that makes sense, but then you get a whole extra set of everything. So it's like you get 4 for the price of 3. And I absolutely love. I think the weight's over. It's like
Absolutely.
a ton and a half or something. It's 2,200 pounds per shelving unit. It's I mean that's a lot of weight. I mean each gallon weighs about 8.5 pounds per gallon. So I mean I'm not even coming close to the weight limits. Now my local fish store, Aquatic Aesthetics. Let's pull out the sign. I haven't done this for a while. They use those, but they have so much water splash, they started to rust on them. But I'm not keeping salt water in there that's going to be adding to the air, and I'm not getting in my tanks like at fish store where it's constantly getting wet. So I've had nothing but good to say about them. I absolutely love them.
Absolutely. I've got one of those style of racks ordered. That's what was supposed to be here today that got put off to tomorrow. But I plan on doing the same thing, eventually ordering quite a few. Once the fish room fills out on the other side of the property here, just ordering and doing the whole thing with those. If you're looking for something smaller, you can find racks that aren't the 72 inch, which the ones that he has and the ones I bought, it's like 72 internal measurements from the inside of these leg posts. And then the outer dimension of 77. So you're right on both numbers there that you had. But like this is a 4-foot one. This is a 4-foot version. It works exactly the same. It's got the same system with the legs. So if you purchase 2, the next one would actually join directly into that leg there. You wouldn't have to put up 2 new legs. So you could keep expanding that system. If you're like, well, I get a 4-foot one now, and you decide I want to add another one later, because they're also typically a little bit cheaper. That's kind of my recommendation. You can do some of the less sturdy racks, but I always tend to err on the side of better safe than sorry. I have overloaded some shelves. I'm like, okay, that's rated for 200, and I've got 250 pounds of water on it. I've pushed the limit before, but I also knew I was pushing the limit and knew that I could bite myself in the backside. Like Ed mentioned, the ones that I've got ordered were 2,000 pound capacity per shelf. So it kind of varies. So just look at them, because some of them you might find do have a lower rating. I saw some that were 1,800 pound capacity. It just kind of depends. You're probably not going to put that much weight on a single shelf anyways. But like, I'm going to put my 125 on one of the shelves. So if you just kind of go up, by the time you factor in water, substrate, and the weight of the glass, a safe recommendation is usually 10 pounds per gallon for all of those things. So that's 1,250 pounds. We're still not getting anywhere close to the maximum capacity of one of those shelves. So yeah, I would say check the weight rating, but there are a lot of brands that are making really nice metal racks. And look for the ones that are expandable in case you do either need to get a smaller one financially, or you're just not at the point that you want a bigger one. Leave yourself the option to be able to build out down the road if it progresses that way, because oftentimes with fish keepers it progresses that way.
The one that I hate is a cobalt, because like he just said, there's outer and inner dimensions. The cobalt lies to you because they have a side thing that helps support the insides. I don't know if you can really see it. You can kind of see it behind that cooler.
Yeah.
But that sidebar comes way on the inside, so you're losing all your extra inches. And that just...
I got you.
Cobalt, no. Husky, yes. Same price. Pretty much everything's the same. It was also harder to assemble, too. The cobalt. The Huskies are super easy.
So 80 people here. Huge thanks to all you all for hanging out this Thursday night. We're catching up with the chat, and we're going to talk a little bit more about tips and recommendations if you're moving tanks and aquarium fish. Sky Dancer saying hello to us. Hey, Sky Dancer, appreciate you being here. Go on through. If it's not highlighted, I may miss it on the phone here since I don't have the big screen up in front of me. Okay,
When
Nathan Hudson said, number one tip I got when I moved with 6 tanks was to not overthink it. It's as easy as you make it. My number one tip would be a 2-part. Make sure you have air if using buckets, and to keep all filters dirty. Yep, absolutely good advice there.
when you prep your tanks that were sitting at your new home, did you leave them out for a while, or did you just move the sponge filters and do instant cycling, or how did you do that?
So I set up this rack of, well, technically it's 15 because I cracked one of the tanks. It made it all the way here, and then I spun around with it and knocked it into a stack of tanks and put a crack in the corner of it. But it was only a 10-gallon, so fortunately for that. But it made it through the moving process fine. It was just me being an idiot and being in a rush and turning around and stacking it on something. So technically 15 tanks that I've got set up now. But this rack here, I went through and I filled all these tanks up the day before just because I had the opportunity to do so when I brought them out. And I really, because I had the option, didn't want to be trying to move the tanks and the fish at the same time. Sometimes you don't have that option and you can still make it work, and a lot of people do. But I set these up. I didn't have any air pumps out here. That was kind of one of those impacting things. I didn't have the air pumps because I wanted to get them filled and oxygenated before I brought the fish. But the process I did was come out, fill them up. The next day I came back with fish and with some air pumps and a big spool of black airline tubing, and then I threw in those sponge filters that I had brought with me. And I used sponge filters from those tanks. As I was kind of setting that up, I had like my little aquarium co-op portable pumps. I had those running just to kind of get some oxygenation going before I even had the sponges in, while I was floating fish, just so I could, get a little bit of additional aeration going as quick as I could. Because again, logical me knows they're fine. Emotional me is like, oh my God, get the fish out of the bags. We have to hurry, 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 go, go, go. So I'm having that inner struggle the whole time. And I know not to. I know it. And if you ask me, it's like, yeah, your fish will be fine. But again, that personal is like, that's for fish. So that was the process I used. Threw in the sponges. I threw, I let the fish temperature acclimate. I floated all the bags. The things that I did have in buckets, I just took some of the tank water and I dumped it into the buckets and let them, kind of temperature acclimate that way by adding a couple of scoops beforehand. And then I unbagged everything. I did even go back through, like Nathan was mentioning, was not cleaning things. The water I had in the buckets from transporting those sponges, I actually took that dirty water and I went through and I dumped some on all of the tanks just to kind of get some of that filter muck in there, especially because I had, which I don't think I even put fish in with any of them, but I had some brand new sponges that I had purchased as well. I got some more of the aquarium co-op 10-gallon sponges, which is what I'm working on transitioning everything to. And then, everything was fine. I had one casualty, and that was one zebra Danielle that I noticed when I got here tonight was gone. But I don't know how old that fish was. I mean, I got that fish. They were $3 for a bag of a dozen of them at a fish thing, and I have no clue. I mean, it was full size when I got it. So, you could say it was from the move, the stress. You could say it was, too much for an old fish. I got no clue. All the other fish look great. Everybody's eating right away and eating tonight. So there's no telling. There's no sickness in the tank. Let's see. I'm going to try and grab a couple more things here from the chat because I know I got a bit behind. Legacy Explorer Aquifers. So Fisher Fever, what are you planning to breed in those tanks? A lot of live bears. And this tank, or this rack is actually also temporary. And some of these are extremely overstocked because I'm waiting on that other rack. So once I get the 6-foot rack put up, I changed plans, which is one of my tips, is to be flexible, even though I want you to plan ahead of time, or I would recommend it. Be flexible and understand if you've got to pivot, make that pivot. You don't have to die hard stick to a plan if it doesn't fit your situation anymore. But all these are actually going to get moved across the room. So I'm going to have the 6-foot rack and then the 4-foot rack right next to it, because tomorrow I'm bringing out my linear air system, which is going to be so much better than I think I've got 4 air pumps hooked up right now for everything. And that way I can get everything on that same loop. It'll all be on that side of the room. Water changes will be a breeze because there's a sink, 8 to 15 feet away, depending upon where you are at the rack. I've got that higher 45-foot water change system with the brass fitting. Shout out to them. They did send me that for free, but I love that thing. We're going to talk more about that here in just a second when we get into the tips. But it's going to be live bitters. Lots and lots of live bitters in it is what I was going to. I've got, the black chin live bears. I've got the 4-spot Merriweathers. I've got lots of different Emlers and Guppies. I will also use these for some bristle noses, which we've got baby blue-eyed lemons, and we have baby standard bristle noses, a mix of albino and the typical chocolate. Mom's a chocolate, dad's an albino. And mystery snails, assassin snails, lots of stuff, lots and lots of things. Shrimp we're going to have once we get into the springtime and we can get the full build out on the new fish room done. I'm going to do an entire rack that's nothing but shrimp. The plan is to just keep building. I looked at the space and just doing the rough math, may end up with 300 tanks in there, and a lot of it's going to be dedicated just to breeding. I am going to have some tanks in there that are my fun display tanks that are, scaped out or whatnot, that are there to look pretty, but a lot of it's going to be dedicated to breeding. I'm building in a section of my fish room specifically for live food. So it's going to be a lot of different stuff going on. All right, let's see where I was. I think this chat just jumped on me. Let's see how far up I can get here.
Kenny's been a member for 31 months. That's awesome.
He has. A huge thank you, Kenny. Good old T.A.N.K Aquatics. Got a phone call from him the other day. It was good to talk to him. And I appreciate you, brother. I really, really do. There's Xanadu saying great topic, Fishing Fever. And hello, Chattanooga Ed. There's Xanadu. Appreciate you being here. Hope you're doing well. Scruffy City says, when I moved across town, I planned one whole day to just move my tank. Most probably don't have that luxury, but I took most of the day. Yeah, so that is one of those things. I didn't get into the topic, and I prefer not to, of should you move your fish? Because sometimes maybe you shouldn't move all your stuff. You should sell it and you should buy new things. But that's you could do an hour on that in and of itself, and it's very situation specific. This is all on the presumption that I've decided I am going to move my fish and I am going to move my tank, and I'm keeping what I have, or I'm keeping at least some of it, and I need to move it.
Now, are you keeping any large fish also, like large tanks, or are you going to keep it all to like 10s and 20s?
Oh, no, I'm still going to have the large tanks. Like I've still got the 110, the 125, the 90, the 100-gallon, the 75, the 220 that I've got to get. I've got to refill and brace. Then a bunch of 40 breeders. There's definitely going to be some 40 breeders in there. And then I'm also going to have the 275-gallon totes. I've also got some other indoor tub ideas that I'm going to do, actually reusing a lot of the storage totes. I bought a lot of clear storage totes, knowing that after I got done moving them, I could kind of recoup some of the cost of what I spent for moving in making some totes for breeding things out, and stuff that's grown out past being the 10 gallon, things like that. So it's going to be a lot of different stuff. It's not all going to be on end like these are. Some of it will be. Some of it's going to be areas that are specifically, this is set up for breeding. I don't care if it looks pretty. This is the most efficient, most effective way to do it. And some of it's going to be, this is the section that is just really nice tanks. Like, hey, here's my Exodon display tank. Here's Piranha display tank. Even though I'd like to breed both of those, that's a different topic. I want those tanks to just look like really nice tanks that any hobbyist might have without thinking about breeding anything. All right, let me get back up here. Somebody was in here causing problems. Oh well. I appreciate all the mods. Thank you all for everything you do. Lady Rorschach saying hello. Hey, Lady Rorschach, good to see you. and catching things on the way back up. See how far we can get up. Good idea, GRB. Ken's 3D and Aquatics. I don't know why everything is not highlighting for me. There we go. Just jump again. But let me find that. Ken had something that should have highlighted, but for some reason the Fish Improver didn't highlight. So, there it is. Do you need more of the sponge filter bubbles? If so, give me a diameter size. If they differ from the ones I'm pretty major. I will get with you and let you know. And I appreciate you. I have had a lot of luck and success with all your products. If one of the mods can throw his Etsy link in here, he sent me some stuff. He sent me things for free. So don't yell at me. I'm being transparent. But it was a lot of really cool aquatic stuff that he 3D prints, and he's got a shop. I've used it and can highly recommend it.
Now, I've got a quick. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, buddy.
I've got a quick question about that. It doesn't look like, do you put your lift tubes on your sponge filters, or are you just going straight with the hose into it?
It depends. It varies. A lot of them I don't, especially because of, like the guppies and inlers, typically I'll keep the water level about there, maybe a little bit lower, just to avoid them being able to really jump into the next tank over. So by the time you've got, if you're using a large filter instead of a smaller one, by the time you put that sponge in up to here and then add a lift tube up to here, I just, I like it better without it. But a lot of them I don't have tubes on. You don't. It doesn't technically get as much pull without the lift tube, but I've yet to come across some issues with doing it that way. So take that for what you will.
Well, and it's probably a lot less headaches.
It is. It's one less thing to fool with. It's one less thing you've got to run the airline tube through when you're moving stuff, when you're cleaning them, all those wonderful things. All right, there we go. Leslie Perry said I put a clean trash bag in a cooler, add a battery-powered air stone, and I'm all set. Yep, that's a great way to do it. And a lot of it comes down to how many fish are moving, how big are the fish, and it's very situationally dependent or specific. A lot of these I moved in bags. If it was one of my larger colonies, if I looked at a tank when I was in my planning mode, and I said this is going to take more than a bag to move all these fish, they went into a bucket. But I had the luxury of doing that. If you didn't have the luxury of transporting in buckets or a cooler, then I could have bagged them in multiple bags and done it that way. So again, it goes, make a plan to be flexible. Things happen. We've mentioned the battery-powered air pumps a couple times. I've got a version, I'm not sure which one, but I've got one of the Aquarium Co-op battery backup pumps along with the USB pump. And that is one of the things that goes back and forth with me on every trip. That's something I have in case maybe I'm headed out here at 1 o'clock in the morning and I get a flat tire. I keep it with me so that I can have it. I can get oxygen into those fish that are in buckets while I'm trying to get a tire changed or call AAA or whatever. It's great to have those little backup things. It works. It's better to have and not need than need and not have, is how I like to say. So yeah, 100% recommend those. And of course, the nano USB pump, the little battery pack. I've been using those for forever. I've been using those for a long time. All right. Jerome says, if they're small tanks in a short move, I just drain the tanks down to 2 inches of water and put as many fish out as I can and move it. I even have moved fish with fish in the 2 inches and all was good. Yes, so I did do that. My swivel spec 5 gallon and then the little 7 gallon cube I've got. I've got the spec has my steak endlers and my blue diamond shrimp, and the cube has my 4-spot Mary widows and my best cherry shrimp, my best reds. And I wanted those to go right back into those tanks that were already set up and established, if you will. So that's exactly what I did. I did pull as much as I could with fish and shrimp, and there were probably some shrimp that, I didn't find in there, shrimplets. I know I caught a bunch of little babies, a few millimeter shrimplets, but I'm sure there was still some in there. I drained it down. There was still liquid over the substrate as well as over the plant. And just moved them like you said. A little bit of water in there and you're good to go. All right, let's see. Let's see if I can pull the link Ken just sent me. Copy that. Ken, thank you for sending me that. Let's paste that. Ahmad may have already done it, but since he just got it to me, I'm going to go ahead and drop it again. That's Ken's Product 3 Etsy shop. Got good stuff on there. I love to support other hobbyists. All right. Get back up through here. This chat is killing me with the way it's jumping, but that's a huge thank you to you all because you're being active. So, hey, I appreciate it very, very much. All right. If it's not highlighted, probably going to miss it. I'm going to take a quick scroll through here. I think I got all the highlighted stuff up there. That's where the shenanigans were and the mods were beating somebody up with a wrench. Funny Viper, I wish I could hear James better. I'm sorry, I can yell. I don't have my mic with me. It's using the mic off of the earbuds, and apparently it's not picking up very well. So I will continue to try to talk louder. I know that I'm not talking as loud as I was when I was intentionally thinking about it. So my apologies. We roll through here. Lady Worship says, not wanting to intrude, but I'd love to hear your layout too, Big Shrimpin'. Apparently I missed something that Big Shrimpin' was talking about. Hey there, Crystal's Pets and Plants saying good evening. Good evening, Crystal. Good to see you.
James, do you have any plans to breed anything a little unusual, like half-beaks or pencilfish or something?
I may down the road. A lot of it is going to be... So I'm doing some of that. I've got some of the less common live bears, like the four spots, Merry Widows, the Flictus quadripunctatus. You don't see those a whole lot. So I've got those, black chin live bears, the Staic Endlers. So I've got some things that are not quite as often seen, even though they're not different in the sense of like half-beak is like different to view. But I do have some plans to do some of that. But a lot of it's going to start off with basic stuff. It's more everyday hobbyists. Like I want to show people how I breed the zebra danios. I want to show people how they can, get cardinal tetras or whatever tetras and breed them at home. And then in doing that, successfully, breeding those, that will give me that option to offer those, along with guppies and enders and plecos once we get fully operational and have the shop up and running. So
well, I like the sounds of you breeding different bristlenose again. For a few years there was like bristlenose everywhere, but lately it seems like they've really died off, and you don't see them everywhere.
Absolutely. So yeah, I've got them started breeding again. They'll probably be mad at me for this move, and I'll have to get them set back up. But that's 100% part of the plan. And we'll just, if I have extra bristlenose, I have extra bristlenose for a while. It's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
So T.A.N.K Aquatic, thank you. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, buddy.
Keep going.
Thank you for being a member. Team Snowball, 31 months, like Ed was saying. So great to see tanks, James. It's great to have some tanks set up. And thank you, Kenny, my brother from another mother. Appreciate you. Rico standing to me for 27 months on Team Snowball, saying one big hi for everybody. Hope everybody is doing well. Rico, my friend, I hope you're doing well. Very much appreciate you being a member and a huge part of the Fisher and Fever family, my friend. Whips World, renewing that membership. I know that's not a new member badge there. Whip World became a member, really renewed membership. So thank you, Whip. Appreciate you. Another awesome part of the Fisher and Fever family. Thanks so much, my friend. Too Cooley for Schooly, using that membership milestone super chat. Been a member for 5 months. Appreciate the love and support. Said, woo! Yeah, absolutely. Too Cooley, thank you so very much for the love and support. Always greatly appreciated. All right. Here we go. Looking to see, I'm trying to grab anything I can, even if it's not highlighted, just because a couple of the things that should have been highlighted or would highlight on my computer aren't highlighting on here. Gabriel Scott Fox that says, James, I agree, there's a difference between a hoarder and a collector. It's a fine line, but there is a difference. One of the things that's nice about using 3 rows of racking versus 4 is not only getting the fish further off the ground, But I'm going to be setting up to where I can put my totes of aquarium products underneath there, and that will keep things a lot more organized. And then I just have to pull out whatever labeled tote, like, oh, this is all air supply, this is all, pumps and fittings, this is tubing, things like that. All right. I think, yeah, I don't know what's going on with the mic. I see what's saying, what the heck is going on with James's mic?
He doesn't have the normal mic hooked up.
I don't. I'm using the earbuds and the cell phone, and then the other cell phone.
So how are you hooked up to the internets right now?
That phone is just using my phone service because I tried the 2.5 gigahertz and the 5 on the Wi-Fi, and neither one of them was great, even though we just paid to upgrade the internet. I'm at the highest I can get without being business class. So the next thing is business class until Starlink becomes available, which Starlink is estimated to be in the area in 2023. But that's kind of part of why I wanted to do this tonight, aside from just wanting to talk to you guys and stream, is to see how it works. Because part of me is like, well, I guess we're just not going to stream anymore, and it's just going to be videos. But I think that we can make this work. I can plug my good mic into the phone. We can tweak things, and we can adjust things, and we can adapt.
Yeah,
as long as we can get a signal out. So
this isn't going to make anybody say, "Oh, it's terrible, I'm leaving." Especially it's all in construction.
Yeah, that's what this pretty face is for. If they're going to leave, that's the reason. Gabriel's last box that says, my female convicts are maturing and displaying the spawning behavior. Any advice on picking a suitable male?
What fish was it?
Convict cichlids.
Oh.
I don't know that I've ever really went through the trouble of like weeding out a really good male, so to speak. I think if I was, I would probably look at coloration, finnage, and size would kind of be my go-to. What's the best looking specimen I can get? It's probably at the biggest size, being typically, but not always the most mature. That's probably what I would look at for convicts. Patterning. You could look at that. What about you, Ed?
I agree. I think it would be easier to pull the ugly males than to pick your best male, because they're kind of all over the place, and the girls are also, they're selecting the best ones they can. You just don't want a sleeper to get in there and that's ugly, and so I think it's better if you pull your uglies and leave your best ones in.
Yeah, that's absolutely. 100% agree with you. All right. There's another one. There it is. Hip Hop Hillbilly said, I dosed my 40 community with Prosy Pro Saturday. Saturday will be day 6. How much should I change just based on numbers? Do I redose for the whole tank or just what's changed? So I haven't used Prosy in a long time. I know we were talking, I was talking to somebody about Prosy Pro on Messenger the other day. I can't recall the last time I needed to use it. So I don't know what the directions are currently, if they've changed the dosage or anything like that. My number one piece of advice is always check the bottle and follow the directions on there. Generally speaking, when you're redosing a medication, pretty much any that I've ever seen, you're dosing the full volume of the tank. So if the medicine says day 2, do a 40% water change and redose, we'll just make it simple. Say I'm using a 10-gallon quarantine tank. Day 2, I'm going to change out 40%. I'm going to take 4 gallons out. I'm going to put 4 fresh gallons in with the 6 gallons that were left, and I'm going to dose the medication required to treat 10 gallons of water. And that's the way most medications are. They want you to treat total volume. Kind of like when I dose, let's say, dechlorinator. I dose total volume, not just the amount of water I changed. I'll dose total volume of tank. And most meds, I'm sure there's one out there somewhere that's not applicable to, but again, read the labels. But most meds that I'm familiar with are that method.
Yeah, like no planaria, I think. It actually, if you read the back, it says, because you're going to drain off half, but it keeps sizing down less medicine you put in. And if I wouldn't have read the back, I would have just put the same little spoon in every time. So it is important to read the back of the thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said, it could be something, maybe I've not used the medication in 5 years and they've changed completely from what their dosing was before. They've changed the, not
Yeah, different
solubility,
minerals.
but yeah, it could be different minerals. It could be a different strength. It could be a weaker strength than it was before. So if it's something that I haven't recently used, I hate to just say, hey, this is what I would do because I don't know what structure they're currently using for it. And I'm sorry, that's not the best answer. Guppy Guru, it's always good to see you, Guppy Guru. I know you've been in here for a while. I saw you earlier. Thank you for being here. Hope you're doing well, Peter. So try RV Starlink. They are available. I'll have to look into that. I appreciate that because whatever we can do to get the best internet possible, we're going to get. Not that money is no object, but you got also people like Whips World throwing a $5 super chat out there that said, join me, Fever Fanatics, in my quest to get Jimmy James a new mic or a megaphone. And that's so funny. And again, I apologize we're having that issue, but this is all part of the growing pains of getting moved over. The next stream we do will have the other setup. But I'm yelling quite loud. Like I can hear myself bouncing off of the walls in the other room and in the hallway. And I don't know how much louder I could talk without killing my voice. But I'm going to try. And a huge thank you for the support. And again, Guppy Guru, thanks for the advice. I will definitely have to look into that. All right.
KJE's here. KJE Aquatics is here. And I won a $100 gift card from them, from Dr. Anthony through Bex. And I still haven't used him. He's super nice guy. I got to meet Keith in real life. Super plants. And I think I'm just going to order whatever random plants tomorrow that he has. Because I have a couple of tanks. I don't care what he has. I'll just take whatever he recommends or whatever.
Heck yeah, that's awesome.
I keep forgetting.
And Hip Hop Hillbilly did come back and say the bottle doesn't say about the second dose, if it's a full dose or not. Personally, if it was me, I would go under the assumption, which I hate assumptions, but I would go under the assumption that I'm doing another full dose that says to redose. So let me get through here. All right, I'm at the bottom. I'm sure I've missed some stuff that didn't pop through as highlighted. Just a couple quick things before we wrap up. Cardboard is your friend. It doesn't necessarily have to be good quality moving boxes, but I recommend having a stack of cardboard, on hand when you're moving tanks. Fingers crossed here, knock on wood. I have never broken a tank in transit, and that's because of packing them correctly, packing cardboard around, and a lot of times I mess my tank. So like yesterday, I brought out the 29 gallons. They all had 10 gallons inside of them that were sitting on a piece of cardboard that went below and on the side of it to cushion. And then like one of them, it was a 29 gallon that had a 10 gallon inside, that had a 5 gallon inside of that, that had a 2.5 inside of that. So that was just one stack of tanks all packed in each other. So having cardboard is a guaranteed help when it comes to moving glass things. Something is going to go wrong. That's another piece that I want to talk about. Things are going to go wrong. Try and be as prepared as you can. I packed one of those yesterday. I think it's in that tote over there from my office. But a huge shout out to Lickazoo for sending me out my badge. I hadn't got to show off yet. Things are going to go wrong. You're going to forget something. Something's going to happen. When I came out a couple of days ago, one of the trips, they all blow together. I came out and I was setting up the 220s that are next to me on this desk that you can't see, that have my big colony of tiger emeralds and my full metal blues. I got up here with those and with the 2 nano tanks, so about 50 gallons worth of tanks. I had my Python, well, it's not Python. I had my water kit, the Hydro one, and I didn't grab the adapter for the sink. It's still attached to the sink at the other house, which is an hour away. So I ended up, shout out to my mother, actually. She came up and helped. She did most of it, but ended up using 1-gallon jugs to fill 50 gallons worth of aquariums because I didn't have the adapter. I did, and I will recommend if you're going to be doing multiple trips and it's not all one big move, and you use water conditioners, try to have that, or just like have that at both places. I took, even if you don't buy a second bottle of whatever you use, take what you have, put some in another container, and then have that at both locations that you still have fish out. So at this house, I have some nets, I have water conditioner, I have some basic things like that. I have fish food that doesn't go back with me. It stays here. If I need it here, it's here. I have those same things, water conditioner, fish nets, things that I would need at that house, at the old house, so that if something happens and I do need to condition some water, I've still got prime there. I'm not going, shoot, I took all of my prime to the new house. So I do recommend kind of dividing some of the things you have if you're going to be at multiple locations. If you're going to be at multiple locations for any length of time, have a little bit at both places. But understand something's going to go wrong. You're going to forget something. You're going to be like, oh, I didn't grab this net, or I didn't grab that thing. Moving in general is a stressful and hectic time. When you add moving tanks and live things such as fish, the stress can really pile on at that point. So just, don't stress out like we talked about back at the beginning. Just breathe, stay calm, be adaptable, and be ready to pivot when plans change, if they change. So those are some of the big tips without getting into specifics. There are so many specifics that we could get into that everybody's got their own way of doing things like bagging fish, all that kind of stuff. If you've got any last minute questions or you asked a question and I missed it, my apologies. Feel free to throw it in there and I will be happy to grab it real quick before we wrap this up and go over to Crafted with Chattanooga Ed, which, Ed, I did not get to talk to you beforehand. You've got Rico staying with you tonight, correct?
Yes, we do.
Okay. How bad would you be if I bail on you so I could start driving back home and maybe get some gas before they close up?
I totally understand, but I can't get on. Oh, you sent me a link.
I did.
But you'll have to bring him up and turn it off.
I got you. I'll make sure you get everything set up. And I may just join it and sit in the background because I'll be in the car. That way I can kind of monitor it. But I know the nearest gas station closes fairly soon, and I would like to get to it while I can still get gas to get home tonight.
And he gets like special gas for his car, so. Yeah,
I've got to have the 93 octane, or I've got to retune it. So that's a whole other story. Paul Sotero, another one of our awesome moderators and members, been a member for 22 months using that membership milestone super chat. Thank you, Paulie. Says, hey fellas, I'm expanding the collection to include a second CARES Gideon species. Wow. I should have them up and running after the holidays. That is awesome, Paul. I'm glad to hear that. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you've got going on there. Congrats on that.
Yeah. I'm going to be buying some goodies from Skulls Aquatics because I ended up with one male goodied. Very bizarre how I never thought I would get a random goodied, but I did. And it was in my quarantine tank that I was taking care of Carrie the Science Gal's shrimp or fish that she got from Rico Stan. And the goodied was like eating all the guppies. And I was like, what is going on in there? And I looked, and he's like twice as big, and it's a big old goodied. And I'd never seen this type before. So I talked to, it turns out somehow one of the fish that Lefty had in his display tank got into Carrie's fish. I don't know how that happens. And then Carrie was on an airplane, so I was going to take him to Aquashella. And that goodie had just ate everybody. So it's funny. Yeah, it's a good sized one. It's about that big. It's bigger than all the types of goodies I have.
I'm going to grab this question real quick from Oinky, and then we're going to wrap things up. Oink Master Supreme Forever says, James and Ed, I'm taking the canister plunge on an incredible price. I ordered a Sea Whale 500 for my 125 gallon. Also, I'm going to install ZoomEd Macro 50. I want it to clash. Any experience with either one? So I personally have not used either one of those products. Sea is a great company, and I hear a lot of awesome things about their products. I've not specifically used that. And I know ZoomEd's been around for forever, and is still making products, so they must be doing something right in theory. But I've not specifically used either one of those, unfortunately. What about you, Ed?
It's kind of the same. I don't think I've used either one of their products, really. I'm trying to think of what ZoomEd products I might have. I've gotten a lot of their stickers over the years, but I don't know if I have a single ZoomEd thing. I might have a breeder net.
Yeah, I know right now I've got one of their turtle lamps, and like we got their water conditioner in our triple crown bags when we did that. And I've used some of their other products. They've been around for a while.
I love their
like you've got the Shark. That's a Sea, right? The Sea Shark canisters, or not canisters, but the internals. I thought those were a Sea. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe my brain's not working from all this. Carlos Diaz, a huge thank you so much for the $10 super chat. So thank you for all you do. Carlos, thank you for all you do, my friend. The support means a lot. You know, I got my YouTube check last week, and that all went to fish stuff, being able to do things. You know, that's how we were able to get that rack that is, supposed to be delivered tomorrow. It's extremely helpful to be able to have that little bit of extra funding that comes in from you all with the super chats and membership that makes it possible to do things, to share. Long term, we've got plans for a building that's nothing but streaming and filming. It's going to be studio area. It's going to have a workshop table. It'll be optimized so that I have space to do the things I need to film the videos correctly, because I've been working off of a little like TV dinner table trying to film stuff for the past couple months, which is why you've seen like one or two videos. I haven't had space. So now that we're getting out here, that's going to give me space not only to film more videos, make them better, and then also to fix things like, we're streaming off the phone with horrible audio tonight. So huge thanks to all of you all for the support. It really does make a difference. All right. Oinky, you are absolutely welcome. Thank you so much for staying to ask the question. Thank you for the safe travel wishes. Which world have you been?
Help.
Have you been streaming? It seems like I haven't seen a stream in a month. We did the stream last week.
Yeah.
But it was a couple weeks before that. Ed was sick and I was moving things. And there were a couple weeks that just did not work out. So we had like a 2 or 3 week hiatus. Came back last week. That's part of why I was determined to at least try tonight. If we came on and everybody said, nope, we can't hear you, we can't see you, I would have said okay and given up. But at least wanted to make the effort to do so, and also test out what's going on. I know now if I'm going to stream from my phone, I need to have my mic with me, or at least my Rode mic that plugs into the phone, if not my good mic. So appreciate you all bearing with the quality issues as we progress and move forward in this next part of the Fisher & Feeder adventure.
And the 2 weeks before, because I had a wedding that I had to go to, and then we all got super sick and got bronchitis at the wedding. The groom had to be hospitalized. He got something in I think they called it sepsis. I don't know, maybe that's wrong. But in his face, where his face was messed up from the virus. Very bizarre.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but nevertheless, we also started 2 hours early for 2 weeks beforehand because we were taking KG's spot. So maybe if you were tuning in at our normal time, we weren't there.
Absolutely. On that note, we'll wrap it up with Patty's Petite Tank saying, you do this stream from your deathbed. Illness is not a valid excuse.
I'm with you, Patty.
We try.
Well, that way we can say goodbye.
Yeah, we can say goodbye from our deathbeds Again, a huge thank you, Ed, as always, my buddy, pal, and co-host. I appreciate you greatly. If one of the mods, since I'm on mobile here and it's free, wouldn't care to drop the link for Chattanooga Ed's stream coming up right now when we wrap this up, we're going to go hang out over there. I will be behind the scenes. But a huge thank you, as always, the moderators, members, super chatters, contributors, questioners, commentators, of course, the replay crew. I love all of you guys. Thank you for sharing my fishy adventure and being part of my life, part of my hobby, and being good friends. Appreciate you. Until next time, keep your fish healthy, keep yourselves healthy. Don't be afraid to catch yourself a little fish room fever. Take care, everybody. Bye. There we go.